especially with washers, I think I would recommend doing it on every load just because you don't know what's going to happen in between. Is there going to be a failure? Are you going to run out of detergent? Are you going to place something incorrectly that would create a failure? So, I see a lot, and being able to get out there and have the support of Terragene, for me, it just makes my career better. You know what I mean? I really enjoy working with the folks.
Rising above the buzz of ultrasonic cleaners and the clanking of stainless steel are the ideas and voices that are changing an industry. You're listening to the Beyond Clean podcast, the central nexus for the people, processes, and products that are improving our sterile processing world. Each week, we speak with frontline technicians, CEOs, engineers, and entrepreneurs with a common goal to help you fight dirty. Every instrument, every time. Whether you are tuning in for education or inspiration, we're glad you did. Now turn on those washers and turn up the volume. It's time to go beyond clean.
On this vendor spotlight, we speak with Hisashi Konno, Biomedical Engineer and Product Specialist, as well as Mark Duro, Industry Subject Matter Expert and Education Manager with Terragene. We're going to be talking about Terragene's solutions that are focused on infection prevention. And specifically today, we'll be talking about access to data and their perfect wash control system, which now you can monitor every cycle, every load, set new key performance indicators, and even verify thermal disinfection. We're going to get into it all in just a couple of minutes, so stay with us. We'll be right back with Mark and Hisashi.
From 17 Studios, you're listening to Beyond Clean, the global voice of sterile processing.
We are speaking with Hisashi Konno, Biomedical Engineer and Product Specialist, as well as Mark Duro, Industry Subject Matter Expert and Education Manager with Terragene today. This is our second spotlight conversation that we've had around the biotechnological solutions that are focused on monitoring infection prevention provided by Terragene. I'd love to introduce the two of you and hear a little bit about your background. I don't think either of you have been on the show before. Hisashi, let's start with you. Can you talk about your experience as a biomedical engineer?
Hey, Justin. Thanks for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here with you and Mark talking about these issues. Well, as you said, I'm a biomedical engineer working as a product specialist at Terragene. Well, I'm in charge of Middle East and Central Asia regions. I'm located at Rosario, Argentina, where the main subsidiary of Terragene is located. I'm working from here.
Excellent. And, I'm really interested as we have this conversation today to kind of hear the technology whys behind the solutions that you all have developed. And Mark, as I mentioned in your intro, you're a subject matter expert, very well known, incredibly involved in HSPA. And from there, I'll stop and let you tell everyone a little bit more about yourself. But I'd be surprised if anybody listening to this show hasn't come in some contact with you over the years.
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Mark Duro. I've been in the field for just about 30 years now. I started when I was like 10. Basically, I've been an instrument technician, a supervisor, a manager, a director in sterile processing for quite some time. And just in the past 10 years, 15 years or so, I jumped ship and I don't want to say went over to the dark side, but I've worked with medical device manufacturers, been doing consulting at healthcare facilities, and the opportunity came along for me to work with Terragene, and very excited about the company and all the products and offerings that they have.
Yeah, I'm interested to talk about your experiences while you're out there consulting. And even before we dive into that, maybe like what drew you to Terragene as you were learning about this company and then came on as an education manager for them? What was it that you just was like, oh man, this company has really got something special going on?
I think from, looking at it from the outside when, you're looking in publications or advertisements online and stuff like that, you see, products, that are, biologicals, chemical indicators and stuff like that. But what drew me to Terragene is the way that they work technology into the solution. So when you look at the products, you could have a BI and you can have an incubator, but to offer solutions to help technicians establish a final decision where if you have a product and you're questioning its outcome, we have technology that can help interpret the results. And that's a good thing. Inevitably, the user will have to make the final call, but it's not just that. There's a whole lot of technology and innovation that goes on within Terragene.
Yeah, there's a confidence factor for the people working on the front lines that you're talking about there in having additional information. And, as we talked on the first spotlight, our prior interview, it was really this cutting edge disruptive technology and really focused around research and innovation. And I think, Mark, you just described this whole monitoring for infection prevention. But Hisashi, the other thing was the staffing, like who's on the team. And you're a great example as a biomedical engineer, but there are others from microbiology, genetics, molecular biology, chemistry, even electronics. And it all ties into the solutions that we're going to be talking about today. But also, you mentioned like the markets that you're responsible for. There's an international presence here, which you've been working hard to continue to strengthen. Can you talk about that?
Yes, we cover all of the markets, and we try day to day to gain global presence. We periodically assist to Congress and fairs. For example, a couple of weeks ago, we were present in Japan, in Medical Japan. There is the biggest fair in Asia, for example. We periodically assist to Medica. There is a trade fair in Germany, in Düsseldorf, Germany. This year, three of our colleagues were present also in Arab Health. Arab Health is the leading healthcare exhibition in the Middle East region, for example. And we're continuously trying to attend all the main or all the most important fairs in the world. For example, Mark was present in the annual conference of the HSPA, isn't it, Mark?
That is correct. Yep.
Great. And we also attended Florida International Medical Expo. So we're trying to work in order to reach all countries in the world to let people know about Terragene.
One thing I'd like to add is more recently, too, we're making a presence in the United States. So a couple of weeks ago, we spoke at a local chapter up here in Oregon. And 2 weeks ago, we were presenting in the Boston area for the local HSPA chapter there.
Yeah, I think it's all about increasing the awareness. And, Mark, I think that's a big reason why you're on the team as the education manager, because one of the things to increase awareness is to also provide information. And what I love about education, having worked in an education role with a company as well in the past, is the fact that you really get to consult, and your consulting background makes you an even better educator. And so I just wonder, when you're going around and working with hospitals, because everybody's looking for operational efficiencies these days, and even then the gray area that exists in sterile processing, you mentioned just getting, information that can increase that confidence and help people make a final decision that they can have more certainty in, is really important. So what is it that you see in your consulting roles as you're working with hospitals that you felt like Terragene was really making a difference in? What were those things that, as people listen to this, think, oh yeah, that happens to me every day?
Well, it's funny, like as I've been doing consulting and going into facilities, all across the country, we end up seeing like differences in practice, how people do things at one facility versus how they do it in another. And a lot of the times when we go in there, it's, I like to recommend standardization to folks that are working in these areas, because inevitably it makes the outcome better in the operating room. So For example, one thing that I just did at a facility in the Midwest was they were doing testing of their washers. And, this was including their ultrasonic cleaners, their washer disinfectors. And my question was, what test are you using? And they showed me this one chemical-based test that they were using for their ultrasonics. And we offer that at Terragene, but also we have a cavitation test that we can use in conjunction with that. And if you look at the ultrasonic cleaner, you can put a chemical test in there to make sure that the dilution of the solution is correct and that it's functioning. But to truly test the transducers, we want to make sure that we have a means of doing that. And at one facility, they were not testing the transducers. They had several ultrasonics, but two of their larger ones were failing because when they were testing, or when I was doing the testing, we had multiple levels of tests within the chamber. And the higher to the top of the chamber that you went, the frequency wasn't there. So the tests were failing. Fortunately, the maintenance folks that were there were able to increase the frequency of the ultrasonic. And then at that point, they realized for the longest time that unit may have not been working as it was supposed to. So, going into facilities and, living through a lot of the challenges that we have is great to be able to work with Terragene and go into a facility and say, you know what, we can conduct an audit and we can also go in and do a cleaning verification program where we can test your washers, we can test your ultrasonics. So another example would be, our recommendation is to test our washers daily when they're being used. However, I was monitoring 2 washers where they ran 10 cycles consecutively. I tested every level within that chamber. And the first 2 cycles were perfectly fine. But after that, I had random failures where, a technician may have loaded it incorrectly, where there was an instrument that was standing upright and the spray arm would hit it. And then therefore the spray arm would not rotate and you would have a process failure within that load. And it kind of makes you think a little bit, if I was back in the field and I wanted to monitor my washing and cleaning processes, especially with washers, I think I would recommend doing it on every load just because you don't know what's going to happen in between. Is there going to be a failure? Are you going to run out of detergent? Are you going to place something incorrectly that would create a failure? So, I see a lot in being able to get out there and have the support of Terragene. For me, it just makes my career better. You know what I mean? I really enjoy working.
Well, you could give them more visibility, right? And you give them a more comprehensive analysis as you're consulting with them. How many times do you wind up not realizing that spray arm might be having an issue and not know? And how long does that go on? I can definitely see where that's a real advantage. And Hisashi, from a technology standpoint, and we're talking about these operational efficiencies, where was it that Terragene saw this opportunity to innovate as well? From Mark, I can just hear better data, gives you better information about processes. He can put in process improvements and really consult and create more visibility. But from a technology standpoint, from the manufacturer side, what did you see and kind of say, hey, this is what they really need to be able to do a better job?
I think that the first step was to gain insight into the reality of many CSSD and to identify the problems in common. For example, why are few indicators used? Or considering that biological monitoring is the most reliable monitoring system, why do we still find places where operators refuse to use it? And we conclude that there are some critical aspects to consider, such as the lack of personnel to do the job, the lack of time to reveal results, lack of fundings, or high demand for reusable medical devices. So from a technology standpoint, we must find solutions to make the work of the CSSD specialist easier. At Terragene, we aim to improve the workflow by reducing the incubation times, digitizing information, and therefore avoiding human interpretation.
So one thing as far as, innovation with Terragene, all of the products that they manufacture, the biological indicators, chemical indicators, washer tests, we have the ability to either interpret them with, it looks like a flatbed scanner. It's called Trazonto. And rather than scanning, it uses artificial intelligence to help interpret the reads. So if you have a type 5 indicator, you have a type 4 indicator, you have a Bowie, you have a washer test. All of these can be put into the scanner to help interpret that. And the good thing is Terragene also offers a free quality assurance software called Bionova. So all of the information that gets scanned in Trazanto gets transferred into the cloud with Bionova. So this software you can build in your department, your washers, your sterilizers, and then associate all the information that's scanned with Trazanto into the cloud. So when you look at that, as Hisashi mentioned, that, we're facing, budget cuts, lack of staff, and any way that we can try to use technology that we create, so all of our technology is created in Rosario, Argentina, and all of the raw materials that are needed to build this is manufactured by Terragene. So all of the devices that are created are done in Argentina. None of it's outsourced. So, having the ability and that confidence with the product to be able to say, hey, you know what? We can offer you a cloud-based platform where you can record all of your quality assurance results. This would be your biological indicators. So our incubators interface with Bionova Cloud as well. So now you have a way of taking your biological information and uploading that as well as your chemical and washer testing information.
So Hisashi, I got a really good feel from you and Mark about really the vision for the company, the ways that they're trying to assist kind of the current market conditions and the stressors that are on sterile processing. I really like what Mark just said too. Nothing's outsourced. So that quality control piece is very much all within your realm, which is important. And especially nowadays, what Mark said about not outsourcing anything and really having full control over the quality at your location in Argentina, I think is so critical. One of the things, Hisashi, as we prepared for this interview that you talked to me about that I'd like you to explain is that you have a 100% vertically integrated business model. And I don't really know what that means. I see that, but maybe you could explain to the audience as well as me what you mean by a vertically integrated business model.
Of course, we consider ourselves as a fully vertically integrated business model. This is like a business strategy in which a company controls from the production of the products to the supply chain. That allows us to have a full control over the prices over the raw material. If you ever have the chance to visit Terragene, to visit our main subsidiary here in Argentina, I will take you, or you can go to some departments like the thermoplastic department, where you will see, for example, how the plastic vials for the VIs are made. We receive the raw material, like the plastic pellets, while machines melt the plastic pellet, inject it, and you obtain as a result the plastic vial for the biological indicators. Here we produce each part of our products. Well, and that's an advantage because it gives us full control over prices, over the raw material, over production. That's great.
So now I really want to dive into a conversation around the solutions themselves. Mark, you teed us up on this a little bit. You talked about the importance of monitoring every cycle and every load, which really wasn't possible before. And you started that conversation really around ultrasonic testing. So let's start there. Start with ultrasonic testing, and then maybe we can go into, some of the other bullet points around test soils and this protein pen system, which I think is really intriguing.
So, as far as testing ultrasonic cleaners, ideally our recommendations state that we need to test, any type of washer daily. And with ultrasonics, it is difficult to test because there's so many different types of tests. You have the chemical test, you have a cavitation test. Obviously, it would be difficult to run a cavitation test on every cycle. However, you could use a chemical indicator that could be attached to the side of the pan or placed within the basket going into the sonic as well. And in that case, I would recommend, possibly testing that almost daily at a minimum. And if you have the ability to do every load, I would recommend doing every load because there's so many things that can go wrong with any washer process, not just the ultrasonic. Things can go wrong with your washer disinfectors. So, and, as mentioned, we can test once a day, but you might run 20 cycles a day, maybe less. But if you're going to be running 20 cycles, there's a good chance that something could go wrong. And if you think about it, when we look at sterilization, we promote every load biological monitoring, because to me, it's the right thing to do because we're challenging the sterilizer every time it's used, not just for implants, but just for every cycle. And if we're doing that with sterilizers, we hear that the most important part of our job is to make sure that items are clean. So therefore, I think the rationale to monitor every washer load makes sense. And, it doesn't have to be a complicated process. When you look at the way Terragene has their test for monitoring washers, it's a simple little slide clip and just insert into the load. And, couldn't make it any simpler. And a benefit to that too is, when we're testing a load, people will say, hey, that's a lot of documentation. Well, if you have a Trazanto scanner on the other side, you just take those results, put them into the scanner. You don't even have to save the test anymore. It just gets uploaded to the cloud for free.
Yeah, I think that electronic piece is super important these days. And, I remember when I first got started in this industry, just the logbooks, right? And just all those paper receipts that are basically taped in the logbook. And, in the event of a recall, how difficult is that? And that's why they say monitor every sterilizer load, right? Is then how big is the process when you have to recall something when the process failed? And, that's a really important point that you're making. And you said it wasn't simply just the ultrasonics. Can you talk about the test soils for washers and the way that the indicators are really different than other solutions on the market today?
Sure. So there's multiple types of tests. We're required to test our washers daily, but there's simulated chemical bioburden. There's the sheep's blood test. There's other types of tests that are a little bit more, not so much difficult, but there are some tests that are on the market where you could take the test itself with the test soil and run it under water and give it a little pinch with your finger, and that test soil will come off. So it doesn't really present a challenge for the user or for the washer itself. And I think when it comes to testing, you want to give your washer the best test possible. However, you really want to look at what kind of a washer you have, what's its capabilities, what type of parameters are built into that cycle to help establish what type of test you want to use.
And another thing that I learned about in talking with you, Mark, was that there's a huge differentiator here because thermal disinfection is also verified.
So the thermal disinfection, the only verification most of the time that people are using is from their printout. So when it comes to washers, I'm going to take some of the, three biggest manufacturers out there have different A0 levels, which is a level of thermal disinfection based on temperature and time, almost like exposure time when it comes to sterilizers, similar. And, in the day or back in the day, the only way to really look at to see if your actual washer, got to the thermal disinfection level was to look at the printout. But, as a consultant walking into many facilities, what you see is that roll of paper coming out of that washer, just hitting the ground and rolling up. And, in order to test your washer, Terragene offers a test for thermal disinfection, which, is something that I can say in the United States, I don't know many people that are doing it, but it's something that we should start to think about looking at because, you can test your washer and say if you have a miscalibrated probe or sensor in the washer that's detecting the temperature and it's not working or giving bad information, that this type of a test will determine if your washer is hitting the AO level it's supposed to.
So, Mark, is that important because of the detergent that they're using needs to be at a certain temperature? I think about that like with sink side, cleaning, or is that another process that makes that important?
For washer testing, that's important to know, what type of detergent you're running. But when you're running a thermal disinfection test, we're checking the temperature and the time to reach that thermal disinfection that's stated by the washer.
So the heat itself is doing the disinfection.
It's the thermal disinfection portion of the cycle. Yes.
Yeah. So tell me about this protein pen, because we've heard a lot about ATP testing. And how is this similar? How is it different? And what are some of the unique features of the protein pen that you like?
So, when we go back to the day, like I remember when I was in the field back in Boston, we did own an ATP reader, and it was brought to me by this one manufacturer. And, the purpose of the ATP reader, it started in food service. It was used to test surfaces, and it would detect adenosine triphosphate. And when you think about it, items are coming down from the operating room, and, the problems that we have is when a dirty instrument makes it through the process and then back up to the operating room. We don't want that to happen. Now, we can try to cut down on that as much as possible by ensuring that we're testing our washers and making sure our processes are right, that we're cleaning correctly, we're following IFUs. But on the other end, when the instruments do come out of the wash, we want to verify that they've been clean. And how can we do that? Well, some people may use ATP, but what we're looking for is protein. So we offer a protein pen that basically looks like an ATP swab. It comes out of a vial. You drop a little moisturizer on it. You select an instrument, you swab it, put it back into the vial, crush it, and then incubate it. And the one thing about this, you don't need a special incubator for it. If you're using Terragene products, our incubators are able to read steam biologicals, low temperature biologicals, ETO, and protein pens all in one. So if you have multiple incubators, you can reduce that by using one of the Terragene, because we can use all different methods within that incubator.
So Hisashi, Mark talked about being able to record everything electronically and the cloud-based solution. Can you talk some more about that, especially around the types of reporting that's available?
Yeah, of course. As Mark said, we integrate all the solutions, BI, Protein Pen, the results obtained with Trasanto in a cloud-based solution that is called Bionova Cloud. This software that is cloud-based integrate the results or the information generated by all Terragene devices, and then you can generate reports about the information you gather from all the devices.
So let's say I'm a manager and I'm at home and I'm not there every minute of every day, and all of a sudden something comes up. Am I able to access that information and help my team or guide my team without having to necessarily come in, because I'm going to get information to help them diagnose a situation that might be coming up?
Of course, this is a cloud-based software, so you can access the software from any device that has an internet connection. Well, and the information will be synced across all the devices. That's one of the benefits. Another important thing to mention is that the information is not stored in your laptop or in your cell phone. It is stored in the cloud. So that's a huge benefit in case you lose your computer, you break your hard drive or something like that.
Yeah, so then you don't lose the information, which is pretty critical.
Yes. Actually, you can access the incubations in real time. You can see the incubations in real time. That's a great benefit.
So Hisashi, I'm assuming you've got some dashboarding because it's a cloud-based solution. What do those dashboards look like? What kinds of information do they have?
Yes, having a digital database sounds great, but it is actually a massive amount of data and records that must be properly processed or analyzed in order to extract meaningful insights. Bionova Cloud not only counts on dashboards, these dashboards provide information or statistic analysis about the indicator used, but it also extracts some key process indicators that give us an idea of the performance of the washers and the disinfectors. Bionova Cloud not only counts on dashboards that provide information or statistical analysis about the results of the indicators used, but also extracts some key process indicators that give us an idea of the performance of the washers and the sterilizers. Analyzing these trends may avoid stopping the service due to an equipment failure. It allows the service to take actions before the equipment fails.
All right. Well, this has been a great discussion, and I do want to highlight some successes for you as we talk about the protein pen. That's the Pro 1 micro system. And in 2019, Terragene received an award from the International Sterilization Congress. So Mark, I think we're just increasing awareness of the solutions and the improvements that can be made by bringing Terragene to the table here in the U.S. Can you talk about how people can learn more and get more information about Terragene?
Sure. I think the best way for if anyone's interested in Terragene or looking at our products, we have a really good website. You know, being a user for so long and going on websites trying to find things is very difficult. On Terragene.com, when you go there, you can easily find products. If you need an IFU, it's super easy to get. When you look up a product, there's a description, there's an IFU, there's lots of information about the product itself. So lots of good videos too. I would encourage people to look at the About section on the website to learn more about Terragene, because there's a lot of good information and really nice videos of the headquarters in Rosario, Argentina.
Oh, that's going to make people want to visit, Mark, I think.
I'm still waiting to go.
Let me know when you go. Like maybe we can turn it into a work vacation.
Absolutely.
You know, there's also great customer service and support and technical assistance, and you can really connect directly with Terragene's scientists. I know we talked about all the different ones on the team in Hisashi. I'm assuming you're one of them as a biomedical engineer for sure. And Mark, you mentioned the website. I also want to let everybody know that Terragene's on Facebook and LinkedIn. They're also on Instagram at terragene.tg. You can email info@terragene.com. And then better yet, reach out to Mark Duro directly. It's mark.duro@terragene.com. That's TERRAGENE. Gentlemen, great job with this interview. And I feel like we're really just still increasing the awareness for the possibility of every load monitoring here. Hisashi, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Well, thanks, Justin, and thanks, Mark, for your company, for your time. And as you said, we will wait you here in Argentina.
And Mark, thank you as well. You know, it's great hearing from somebody who's still working out there in the field, but, you know, with all of those years of experience and having consulted, I think the education that you're providing Terragene's invaluable.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
That was Hisashi Konno, biomedical engineer and product specialist, along with Mark Duro, subject matter expert and education manager with Terragene. And we were talking today about the perfect wash control system. Terragene really trying to drive the industry forward with their biotech solutions focused on infection prevention and really having a cloud-based solution that gives you an incredible amount of data and all available at the touch of your fingertips on any device. I think so important. As Mark said, that move towards every load monitoring, if it's something that you're able to implement, can really help monitor the equipment and make sure it's functioning properly and alert you a lot quicker. And another big differentiator is verifying thermal disinfection. So we talked a lot about that towards the end with Mark, and I just appreciate his experience out there in the industry consulting, as well as Hisashi's developing the technology. As they mentioned, they don't outsource anything, and all the quality is controlled in Argentina, where their headquarters are. That's going to do it for this vendor spotlight. But as a reminder, we'd love it if you download our smartphone app for iPhone or Android. It's the best way to listen to the Beyond Clean podcast. But if you're already listening to podcasts out there on Apple, Amazon, or Google Podcasts, you'll certainly find us there. You'll find us on iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spotify, or simply search for Beyond Clean on your favorite podcast application. Some of these episodes have bonus content, but again, only available on the smartphone app. While you're there, we'd certainly appreciate a rating and a review, because we love your feedback about the show, and specifically around ideas for future guests, topics, themes for a season, or maybe you learned something that really made a difference in your day-to-day. We want to hear about it. Just send an email to info@beyondclean.net. Thank you for listening to this Vendor Spotlight on Beyond Clean.